Luciano Darderi is becoming a nightmare for the top 10. He's not just winning, he's making the best players in the world look uncomfortable. They study him, they prepare for him, and then they step on court. And nothing works. Last week, he saved 4 match points against the world number 3. 4. A guy who used to sleep in a car with his father. A guy who lived on his grandmother's secret pension. Now, he's the biggest problem the ATP didn't see coming. Here's why. Let's put a number on the table that should stop you cold. 1 year ago, Luciano Darderi was ranked number 644 in the world, not on the fringe of the top 100. Not a bubble player fighting for a wild card. 644. That's a player most ATP scouts had already moved past, a name that didn't appear in any serious conversation about the future of men's tennis. And this week, this exact week, he walked into the Foro Italico in Rome, one of the most storied clay courts in the history of this sport, reached the semifinals of a Masters 1000 event, 4 separate moments where Zverev was 1 point away from closing it out. 4 times, Darderi looked at that scoreboard and said, no. Today, he is ranked number 18 in the world, from number 644 to number 18 in 12 months. The numbers speak for themselves. So the real question isn't whether he belongs at this level. The real question is how a player built entirely outside the traditional elite pipeline became the most uncomfortable name in any top 10 draw. That answer starts not in Rome, but in Villa Gesell, Argentina. Luciano Darderi was born in 2002 in Villa Gesell, a small coastal city in the Buenos Aires province. Not Buenos Aires City, not a tennis hub, a beach town where nobody was scouting future ATP players. But Darderi was winning before anyone was watching. He took the Argentine under-10 national title, before most kids his age had decided what sport they wanted to play. His father, Luciano Enrique, known as Gino, was himself a former tennis player from Villa Gesell, not a celebrity coach, not a federation-appointed technician, his own father. And Gino made a decision that would define everything that followed. He would coach his son himself, and he would take him to where the real opportunity existed. That meant Europe. That meant Italy. Gino had Italian roots and dual nationality, which opened a door that most Argentine juniors never get access to. When Luciano was around 10 years old, the family relocated. By the age of 12, he was competing officially for Italy. But relocating doesn't mean the resources followed automatically. Gino covered the costs himself: tournament travel across Europe, accommodation, equipment, entry fees. When the money ran out on the road, they slept in the car. Not once. Not as an exception. As a recurring reality of what it costs to keep a junior tennis career alive, without a sponsor or institutional backing writing the checks. And back home, Darderi's grandmother was running her own quiet operation, hiding a portion of her pension from the rest of the family, and sending it directly to Luciano so the dream didn't die in a parking lot somewhere in Europe. He has her tattooed on his body. That image says everything that needs to be said about where this career came from. Now, the structure that actually developed his game. Because this is where the story gets more specific than most coverage gives it credit for. Through his father's connections and Luciano's early results in the junior circuit, he gained access to the Italian Tennis Federation, the FITP, and its network of training centers in Rome and Arezzo. This is the same federation system that produced Jannik Sinner, and an entire generation of Italian players now dominating the ATP Tour. It is not a private academy with a celebrity head coach and a waiting list of wealthy families. It is a structured, federally funded development environment, where young players train under qualified coaches, compete in European junior circuits, and get daily exposure to the tactical and physical demands of professional tennis. Darderi was inside that system. His father remained his primary coach and closest technical reference throughout, but the FITP infrastructure gave him courts, competition, and the continuity that a family funding a career from their own savings simply cannot provide alone. This combination, a father who knew the game deeply, and a federation system that provided the competitive environment, is what shaped the player the top 10 now has to prepare for specifically. And then COVID hit, the tour shut down, Europe locked down, and Darderi found himself training inside the Foro Italico in total isolation. The same courts where he just reached the Masters 1000 semifinals. No crowd, no opponents, no certainty about when professional tennis would resume. Just a young player, an empty clay court, and a decision to keep working when stopping would have been completely reasonable. That period didn't break him. It sharpened him. It gave him thousands of hours of deliberate, uninterrupted practice. At a stage in his development when repetition is everything, While other players were waiting for the tour to restart, Darderi was building the technical foundation. That would eventually make him a nightmare for the best players in the world. Now let's talk about why he's actually a problem on court. Because the formation story explains the foundation. But it doesn't explain why top 10 players look like they can't solve him. That comes down to two specific weapons and how he deploys them together. Start with the forehand. Darderi's forehand is not a textbook weapon in the classical sense. It doesn't carry the mechanical perfection you see from Alcaraz. It doesn't have the extreme topspin of Nadal's signature shot. What it does is arrive differently than elite players expect. The pace, the angle, the timing. It breaks the pattern that top 10 players have spent their entire careers learning to read. Here's what that means in practical terms. Players at this level build their game on recognition. They have processed every shape, every spin, every trajectory, thousands of times in practice and in matches. They know what's coming before it arrives. That anticipation is not a luxury. It's the foundation of how elite tennis is played. You don't react at this speed, you predict. Darderi's forehand disrupts that prediction. It forces micro-adjustments that accumulate into errors. Errors from players who almost never make errors. In a sport decided by margins of 2 or 3 points per set, that disruption is not a small advantage. That is the entire game. Now add the slice backhand. In modern tennis, the slice backhand is widely treated as a defensive shot, a reset, a way to neutralize pressure and buy time to recover position. Most top 10 players are specifically trained to punish it. Step in early, take the ball on the rise, and immediately dictate the next shot. Darderi doesn't use the slice to defend. He uses it as a deliberate timing disruptor. He introduces it into rallies not when he's under pressure, but precisely when his opponent has found a comfortable rhythm and is beginning to control the point. The ball arrives lower, slower, with a different bounce than the rally had established, and the player on the other side, who was already loading up for the next aggressive shot, suddenly has to recalculate everything mid-swing. The weight transfer is wrong, the contact point shifts. The shot they were about to hit becomes the error they didn't expect to make. Now combine those two elements in the same match. A forehand that hits harder and at a sharper angle than expected. A backhand that arrives slower and lower than expected. You have created a rhythm problem that has no clean pre-programmed solution. Elite players lose points when they can't find their rhythm. Darderi systematically takes their rhythm away. Not through power alone, not through speed alone, but through the specific combination of pace and disruption that his game was built to deliver. That's why analysts and opponents consistently describe him as uncomfortable and unpredictable. Not because he's doing something spectacular or physically impossible, because he's doing something that doesn't fit the template. And the template is what every top 10 player has spent years perfecting their response to. When the template doesn't apply, the preparation doesn't apply. And that's when the best players in the world start looking like they don't know what to do next. Rome 2026, Foro Italico, Masters 1000 semifinals. Darderi defeats Jodar on his way through the draw. Then he faces Alexander Zverev, world number 3, 6'6", one of the most powerful servers on the ATP Tour. Multiple Masters 1000 titles, Grand Slam finalist, a player who has closed out matches against the best in the world, in the biggest moments the sport offers. Zverev had 4 match points, 4 legitimate separate opportunities to end the match and move on. 4 moments where the scoreboard said it was over. Darderi saved every single one. Let that land for a second. Not 1, not 2, 4. Each one of those moments is a test of something that cannot be coached in a single session. It's a test of whether the player standing on that court believes at the deepest level that he belongs there, that he can still win, that the match is not over until it's actually over. Darderi passed that test 4 consecutive times, against the 3rd best player on the planet. That sequence is not a statistic you manufacture. It is a player demonstrating under maximum pressure on one of the biggest stages in tennis that the mental architecture built through years of real adversity does not crack when the moment demands everything. Darderi put it simply. Sinner is the reference for all of us. If you work hard every day, there are no limits. He's not speaking in abstractions. He's describing a blueprint he watched Sinner execute from inside the same federation system, and then applied himself, starting from a harder position with fewer resources and a longer road to travel. The results are now on the scoreboard. Here's what this moment actually means for the ATP going forward. Darderi is 24 years old. He is not at his ceiling. He is at the exact point in a professional career where everything starts to compound simultaneously. The ranking points accumulate and open doors to bigger draws. The experience on Masters 1000 courts accumulates and raises the baseline of what feels normal. The confidence from saving 4 match points against Zverev becomes the new internal reference point for what he is capable of under pressure. Every tournament from this point forward, he walks onto the court having already done something that most players ranked above him have never done. The top 10 didn't see him coming because they weren't looking at number 644. They're looking now. And what they see is a player whose game was specifically built to create discomfort, whose technical weapons have no clean counter template, and whose mind was forged in conditions most professional athletes have never come close to experiencing. He is not a problem that gets solved with better scouting reports. He is not a problem that goes away after one bad tournament. He is a problem that gets structurally harder to solve the more court time and big match experience he accumulates. That's what the climb from number 644 to number 18 in 12 months actually represents. Not a hot streak, not a favorable draw, a player who was always going to get here. It just took the rest of the world longer to notice. And that's why, right now, Luciano Darderi is the biggest problem in men's tennis. Before I wrap this up, I need to ask you for a quick favor. If you're finding this breakdown valuable, if this is the kind of analysis that cuts through the noise and gives you the real story behind the rankings, please take 1 second to hit that like button and subscribe to KT Tennis. Over 98% of you watch without subscribing. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it makes a massive difference in our ability to keep bringing you this level of unfiltered analysis that the mainstream tennis media simply doesn't deliver. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Darderi can break into the top 10? Can he go further? And don't forget to subscribe for more breaking coverage of the stories that are reshaping our tennis world.